So today is Wednesday, July 22nd, and this is the shared workshop session number two. And today we're going to be talking about the personalized learning designer. Um, so general idea with the PLD is basically it's an automated teaching assistant, if you will. It helps you identify, struggling students. It helps you congratulate students that are not struggling or welcome students into a course. All in the way of these PLD rules that we set up. So the general idea is it's an automated system that you can use to where you set it up once and you don't have to think twice about are my students being notified about a certain action. Once you set this up in the course, regardless of whether new students get enrolled into the course 60 days later, it's still going to apply to them. So going to the first slide here. So this is just an outline of kind of how the PLD works. So you can see there's about 8 major steps, in terms of the PLD. So you have a course start date. You can have an automated welcome email and a pop-up message introducing somebody into a course. You can have quiz results that determine a pathway of how a student will navigate through the course. So whether, you can say if a student receives a passing grade on a certain quiz that you set in a PLD rule, be able to progress to the next stage of the course. You can email progress to the tutor. You can set it up so that after achieving a certain grade or certain meeting a certain requirement, they can access other course content. They're able to join a Blackboard Collaborate session based on what you set up in the PLD. There's retention check, forced redirect until completion. So a number of ways that you can use the PLD within a course. So your first question might be is how exactly, it's a brief little overview of what the PLD is, but how exactly does it help instructors? So let me just get a brief little survey, and I know for those of you that might be using it, how many of you have been using the PLD in your current environment at the moment? Miles, you are? Okay. Kim and Summer, have you guys been using the PLD? We are as a login reminder. Okay, sure, that makes sense. And I know Kim is you might be en route, so I know you might not have access to messaging here. So I'll if you have a moment. But yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, again, there's many ways that you can use the PLD. Some people use it very they use it with some simple rules. You can really get detailed with the PLD and make quite a bit of your course set up. So again, based on the slide, that previous slide, you can essentially see how many ways you can use the PLD in a course. But again, you're not required to use all of those together. If you want to use, for example, only one, you can only use one. So the general idea, how exactly does the PLD help instructors? Again, it helps remediate or accelerate learning paths based on an individual student's performance within a course. So again, with that, as we progress throughout the slide deck here, you'll see how exactly we can do this. But it's definitely a good tool to help the students know kind of their learning path and give them a little bit more of an idea on how they should be progressing through the course. It helps instructors ensure every student is getting attention in the course. So again, thinking about it as essentially an automated teaching assistant, rather than having a teaching assistant go into the course and manually checking grades and manually messaging students and things like that. You can set up these PLDs so that you can say, again, once a student has completed a certain grade in a course, or on a quiz or something like that, they're going to receive this congratulatory message. Or when a student enters the course for the first time, they're going to receive this welcome message. Again, it takes away that manual process of the instructor having to say, I'd love to, message all 30 students in the course when they access the course for the first time, but I'm not, 5 of them might do it today, 5 of them might do it in a week. And it's too much for me to go into the enrolled users area to see who's done what. And Kim, I see we have not used the PLD yet. Heard you can break course at import if settings. Heard you can break course at import if settings are not properly done. Made me nervous. Okay. You can break course. I'm not familiar with it breaking the course during the import process. Not sure if that's something that you've heard of, but it shouldn't. I can definitely look into that, Summer or Kim. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely. Okay. And maybe we can talk offline about that, Kim. I might send you an email just to get some more information. See if somebody had an example of how that happened. Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah. So instructors will be able to use the tool to help identify behaviors of students. So again, think of it as a teaching assistant, and you can set up certain rules for, again, not only access to an activity, but you can also navigate, figure out how exactly the students, what they're doing in the course, when are they accessing the course, things like that in terms of behaviors. And then it helps build student retention in the course and keep students engaged in the material. And this goes a little bit hand in hand in what we talked about last week in terms of activity completion. So some of these rules can be related to activity completion, and building or bringing this all together. The general idea of this, the first shared workshop and the second shared workshop is the idea of student retention. And we want to keep the students' interest as much as we can throughout the life of a course. So the more we can keep them interested in the course, the more we can keep them engaged, the better. And Andy, yeah, so you said, I'm moving courses across sites with PLD rules on a regular basis, no problem so far. I don't usually back up user data. Yeah, okay. I can contact the, yeah, that'd be great, Kim. Perfect, thank you. All right. So what exactly is needed to make the PLD work? So in terms of making a PLD work, there's 3 major components that we need to talk about here. So it works with the rules that are built or copied. You can copy it from one course to another, but there's 3 components that work together. It's the events, the conditions, and the actions. So with the events, basically what you're doing here is these are triggering items for PLD rules. As you can see here on the right-hand side, you can have one or more multiple events, and you can choose, do you want the student to have to meet all of the events or just that one event? For example, I might have something related to a forum, and I might say, when a student posts in a forum, I'm going to give them access to the next activity, and I can say, the events might be submission to a forum post or reply to a post, and I can do one or the other there. I don't have to do both. In terms of conditions, so you can use conditions to create conditions for when a rule is triggered. So again, the condition, the idea there is you set up the condition to be checked, and And then the last part is an action takes place. So with actions, you use these to determine what happens when a rule is triggered. There can be, again, with this, there can be multiple actions, but each rule needs at least one action. So the general idea here is you use an event to trigger a rule, a condition to check, and an action to take is the general idea. So looking at events here for a moment. So events are, again, the trigger that makes the PLD check the rule. So these events can be action-based. For example, a student submits an activity, or it can be date-based, checking a student login every 3 days. You can see each option here, there's an outline of what each option you have here. And again, I'll just go through a little bit through each one. So activity completed, so that's triggered when an activity is either manually or automatically marked as complete. Again, that goes hand in hand with what we talked about last week with activity completion. So you would have to have activity completion set up at the activity level to be able to use that one. Activity graded, that one kind of speaks for itself. It's triggered when an activity is manually or automatically graded. Activity viewed, triggered when an activity or resource is viewed. Quiz or assignment submitted. So again, general idea, you can imagine with some of these, it's pretty self-explanatory. Triggered when a quiz or an assignment has been submitted. This one, though, I should mention, is often used to release new content without waiting for manually graded items. Forum triggered when a user replies to a forum or to another user's reply to a forum topic. Forum topic post is triggered when a user posts a top-level forum topic within a forum. And then looking on the right-hand side here, user added to the group. So with the user added to the group, that's triggered when a user has been manually added to a group or added by a different rule in the PLD. User removed from a group, again, just the opposite, triggered when a user has been manually removed from a group. Course entered, that's triggered when a user enters the course for the first time during a day. Leaving the course to visit another course and open up other courses and pages will reset the trigger. So I like this course entered one. I think that works really well in terms of, if you want to, I've seen this being used a little bit more often when instructors want to send a message to a student if they haven't entered the course in 3 days, to kind of keep them a little bit more engaged. Course grade change, triggered when any grade in the course changes the course grade. Specific date and time, that would be related to, again, just a specific date and time that you set in the rule. The date can be set in the future to check conditions at that point. So one little note about this is the event does not have a triggering activity, though. Recurring event, so triggered, that would be related to triggered at specific dates and times in the future as scheduled by the rule creator. And this could be scheduled to occur weekly, daily, or weekly at a specific time of the day. And then course start date. So with the course start date, course editors can create PLD rules that trigger relative to the configured course start date. So this is the newest option, and it allows them to select up to 365 days before or after the course start date to execute the rule. So Andy just made a mention here. I use date range checks or grade or completion checks within the course entered rules to turn the pop-up on and off based on some sort of interaction within the course. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Andy. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the events here, or have any of you ever had any issues with the events when you've created them?
We've had issues. We use it in our training course. I didn't set them up, but we had some feedback where students were just like getting too many pop-ups because there was like an event for every activity and it would pop up something. And then every time they go back in, it would pop up again on them. And so I think that,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and that's definitely something to think about. I know, right? Yeah, information overload can be a little bit too much. I see where you're coming with that, and that's something to think about when you're creating PLD rules. Is you know you want to keep students engaged, but you don't want them to be. There is a point to where too much information and too many pop-ups can cause them to kind of do a reverse effect and be less engaged. So yeah, great point, Miles. So talking about the conditions here. So conditions again are what gets checked when the rule is triggered. So the idea of conditions are you can see the example conditions here. So activity viewed checks if an activity or resource has been viewed by the user who triggered the rule. And again, we'll just kind of the way we did last week, we'll go into my demo environment and I'll show you these hands-on specifically. So I know at the moment, just reading, kind of looking through this information, it might not be that helpful. But again, we'll go into the demo environment and see exactly how this works if you haven't used a PLD in the past. Activity completed checks if an activity has been marked completed for the user who has triggered the rule. And again, this, as I mentioned earlier, requires completion tracking to be enabled. Activity grade range checks if the grade for an activity is within the configurable bounds. So again, with something like that, you can say, if the grade is anywhere between 80 and 95%. One important note here for activities that allow multiple submissions, the grade used is the overall grade for the activity, not the most recent submission. So just something to keep in mind there. User role check. This would check if the user who triggered the event is a member of a certain role. This might be helpful to prevent rules from triggering for certain educators. Group membership checks if the user is within a specific group. So for those of you that might use groups in a course, you might use this group membership check option. Course grade range checks if the course grade range is within a specific range. Course login checks to see if the user is logged into the course in a certain number of days. And then date checks if an event takes place before or after a designated date. So again, these are somewhat related to the events there. But any questions or comments about the conditions? Just looking at those and kind of understanding how they work there. Again, most of this is pretty straightforward, just from a review perspective. So, and then the last part of a PLD is the actions. So what actions are completed when the user meets the conditions for the rule that you've set up? Again, you can see that the number of options here, we've already kind of mentioned a couple of these. Miles had mentioned the display alert, so that's something that would pop up when a user accesses a course. That's a very common one. Send email, again, is another very common one where I see that being used often if an instructor wants to congratulate a user for achieving a certain score in a course, or if they want to notify them, that they haven't accessed a course in X amount of days. There's also the go-to activity. Some of these are a little bit more advanced in setting up. Go-to activity would be if you completed a certain activity. This goes to a little bit of what we talked about at the beginning in terms of giving a student a certain learning path to follow. You might say, again, a student has completed assignment A, and now that they've completed assignment A, they're going to be navigated to assignment B. using that PLD go-to activity, rather than having the student have to navigate into the course itself. There's that go-to URL. There's a lock release code and unlock release code. Again, that's related to if you had, these lock or unlock releases on activities within the course. You can add a user to a group. If you are using groups in the course, remove a user from a group, and then last but not least, enroll a user in the course. So again, a lot of actions that you can choose here. For those of you that might just be starting out with some of these, you might start with, a simple display alert or send email just to kind of get a general idea of how things work. And then as you progress and learn a little bit more about the PLD, you do a little bit more testing and learn about some of these other actions and how exactly those work. Any questions about the actions detail here? I'm not hearing anything there. So you might say, okay, what are some rules I can use to help my students? Just some sample rules. Retention check alert, quiz or assignment not submitted reminder. So again, I've talked a lot about congratulating students or allowing students to proceed within a course based on certain activity completion. You can also do the opposite of that and say, we're going to do a reminder for when a student has not submitted a quiz or an assignment. Failed quiz alert with link to a resource. So again, with something like this, you might say, the student didn't match the passing grade, which you set up in the PLD. You might say the passing grade is 80 or 85%, but they get something lower than that. You might send an email or a pop-up message to that student saying, sorry to hear that you haven't received a passing grade in this. You might think about reading these course materials that are in the course, or even point them to a website in the email to say something along the lines of, please reread this documentation to learn a little bit more about this, and then you'll be able to take the quiz at a later time. The welcome message, I really like that a lot. In terms of online learning and engaging students within an online course, I like the idea that when a student enters a course, especially if it's a course that isn't set up for a specific date and time. For example, if the course start date is let's say August 1st, and the instructor, they have that course start date for August 1st, but the students can go in August 1st or August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and there maybe there is a collaborate session or anything interactive until 4 days into the course. Again, the instructor can go into the course and go to the enrolled users area and see who's accessed the course at each time to know when they have, and maybe reach out to them individually. But rather than doing that and saving yourself some time as an instructor, you can just create this PLD rule and create a welcome message to say something to the effect of, welcome to this course. We're looking forward to working with you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at, michael.chenoweth@openlms.net. Again, announcements. PLD is a great tool for announcements too. If you want a certain announcement posted to the students at a certain time, and then release of additional content. I think that works well also. So in terms of, and again, we'll go into the demo a little bit later here, but in terms of the PLDs, so you have to kind of understand how exactly the PLD interface works. So if you go into the course dashboard, that's where you can access the PLD. So you can see here the course dashboard and the PLD. Also, the other area to do this would be if you go into the course administration gear icon and open that up. That's where you can access things that you can also see in the dashboard here, such as gradebook and reports and et cetera. But the PLD is all the way down the bottom. Again, I'll show you guys that in a little bit here. And then the interface itself is, this is the general idea of the PLD interface. So you can see here, add a rule, and then you can see, the black button there. Below that, always on welcome, completed assignment. Those are some rules that have already been created. So this is the beginning of the PLD interface. And again, I wanted to do this in the presentation so that for those of you that might take the presentation as a follow-up, and might not have access to a recording at a certain time, you'll be able to see these screenshots if you ever wanted to share them with anybody else. So again, you start with an event. You can see the way that the PLD is set up is based on what we've talked about in this presentation already. There's events, conditions, and actions. So the event is activity-based events can be set to trigger on any specific type of activity, specific instance, etc. So you can see here an event, for example, course entered. You would have to click that add button on the right-hand side there to actually add that event. That would be the first step in setting up the PLD. I do mention here, don't forget to give it a name. That's something regardless, whether you do it in the event tab or the actions tab. If you don't do it until the actions tab and try to save it, it would require you to add a rule name. So just something to keep in mind there. I've created some PLD rules and went through it, and I tried to save it, and I said, what am I doing wrong? And oh, that's right. Kind of the first step. I should probably give it a rule so I know what exactly this PLD is. Adding a condition. So again, with the idea of the conditions being that it's what gets checked when the rule is triggered. So this is where you add a condition. So you can base it off of activity viewed. In this instance, user has not viewed the following activity. You can see select an activity, and then you have page and welcome. So as the course, so at this point in time, the course is probably set up with a set, whatever assignments, quizzes, etc. You will have access by way of this drop down. You can see select activity, regardless of whether it's a quiz, assignment, page resource, etc. You get to have that drop down on the left-hand side of all of the activities, and then the specific type of page or type of quiz will show up on the right-hand side. So if that said, instead of page, it said quiz, then on the right-hand side, if there's 5 quizzes, you could say, I want to select a quiz number 1 or quiz number 2, and so on and so forth. And then adding an action. So again, general idea here, rules can have one action or multiple ones. The idea here is this is the email. Well, I'm sorry, this is the display alert option. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, but it's evident as you can see it here, is that one of the main reasons why I really like the PLD, in addition to all of this being automated, is that it is, again, if you think of the name of it, personalized. It's a personalized learning designer. It is personalized for each student. So these tokens that you use, such as in the display alert and in the email, they set that up so you can see welcome student underscore first name. Again, I had mentioned this earlier that, let's say, for example, you enroll 20 students into a course on July 1st, and you create this PLD rule. It's not, the PLD rule isn't going to say, okay, it's only going to apply to those 20 students. Because it has this token, it's going to take anybody that meets the events and the actions, and it will basically pop in their first name and personalize that. So again, I think that this really makes the PLD that much more engaging for students. Again, the fact that it's automated is great. It saves a lot of time, but the fact that you can use so many tokens here, you can see user tokens. There's first name, last name, email. There's the course tokens. So if you want to pop in welcome student first name, and again, I'll go into more detail in the demo, but welcome student first name. We're happy that you've started, and then you could put the course token name. And again, you don't have to change or you don't have to type in the course name there. It's just going to put that in there. And then you can see there's also activity tokens, activity grade tokens, etc. So again, we'll go into a little bit more detail within the demo here, but I just want to give you guys a screenshot of how exactly the actions work here. You can, one thing I hadn't mentioned is you can also pair up that with a redirect to a specific resource when they close the message too, related to that display alert. So again, nice feature there. So with that being said, I'm going to jump out of the presentation here for a moment, and we're not going to go into the examples just yet. But let me stop sharing here and go into my test environment. So give me a quick moment here. My course is just loading up here, so let me go back and share my application. There we go. Should be able to see everything here. So again, the general idea here is you can access the PLD, as I had mentioned, by either going into the course administration area here and going all the way down to personalized learning designer, or I can go into course dashboard and click on this PLD here. So it takes me to the same place here, and you can see in this course we have a couple PLD rules already set up. Before we go in and talk about each one of these, I just kind of wanted to give you a quick little demo of, for those of you that might not be familiar with creating a PLD, kind of how simple that is. So again, you access this personalized learning designer page. I'm going to click on add a rule. And what it does is it starts with the rule name. Again, you don't have to add this right at the moment. You might say, well, I don't know what this rule name is. I'm still trying to kind of piece it together. You can definitely do that, and you can say, okay, let's start here. Just keep it simple and start with events. So again, the general idea right now, it says there are no events defined for this rule. So keep in mind that you have to think about what type of event do you want to set up here. Do you want to set up something based on activity graded, where you're sending a congratulations message to engage the student that they've done a great job in the course? Do you want to set it to course entered? When they enter the course, you want to send them a welcome message. I'm going to do activity graded for a moment here. And then you can see, as I choose a specific event, it pops up the activity type and the activity. So this is where I had mentioned earlier, this is kind of a two-step process. Activity type is what exact activity are we setting up here? Is it going to be an assignment? Is it going to be a quiz? And you can see all of the activities. I have an option of choosing all the activities here. I'll just say choose quiz here. And then under the activity, so it's going to say the PLD is smart enough to say, okay, I'm going to give you the option of choosing any of the quizzes in the course. So I might say, yeah, let's do it based off of the first one, the assessments option. So that's the first setup of the events. It's fairly simple. You want to say activity graded. You get to choose the activity type, and then you choose the specific activity, and I have to click add. So you click add, and you can see now you no longer see a message saying that there isn't an event set up. So the event's set up, and you can see the activity grade is based on quiz and activities assessment. So the next step would be clicking on the condition tab. So the general idea here is what type of condition do we want to set this up with as. Again, knowing that we set the events with related to a graded activity, we'll want to use activity grade range here. And again, I'm going to click at activity grade range, click add here, and this is the screen that you saw earlier in the presentation here, where now use the activity which triggered this rule. Because I had mentioned the quiz in the events area, you can just keep it simple and say use the activity which triggered this rule, which in the event area. Or you can always say select an activity and choose the same option here. You can say quiz and choose that quiz there. And then in the activity grade range, what exactly do I want the students to receive a message on? And I'm going to say grade is greater than or equal to 90%. And keep it simple there and click save. So now you can see, again, it removes the message that a condition is not set up. And then the last part is the action. So again, what exact action do you want to set up for the student? So you can see the action types that we talked about earlier: display alert, send email to activity, go to URL, etc. here. With this one, I'm just going to use the simple email option. If I click send email and then I click add here again, you can see this is where you get into starting to create the rule itself, or I should say, I'm sorry, the message itself. So who do you want this to come from? You can say action creator. It would be myself. You could have it come from a certain teacher in the course, or you can say, you know what, I'm actually an administrator who's helping this teacher in the course, and I want my own email, so I'm just going to say my personal email right here. And I might say first name, last name. In terms of recipients, this is always important to understand. A couple years ago, I was working with a client that recipient, you might say, with just looking at these and not looking at the definitions of each one, you might say, well, I'm going to do all users of role assigned in the course. And that anybody that meets the condition of, and anybody that's so. And let me show you what I mean here. So if I click all users of role and send in this course and set to student and click save, you might say, well, okay, this is going to go to any student that has met the requirements that I've set up in the events and the condition. And this is actually a step that you do not want to do. I want to point this out because years ago I had worked with an organization where this was set up. And what this does, rather than sending it to a specific user, is this message would go out to every student in the course. So again, that's something that I just wanted to mention there. Very easily, if you think about it a different way, rather than having it sent to all students in the course, knowing that only students can be graded in this course, you can say, okay, you don't have to specify that the student is a student in the course. We just want it to set to triggering user. So I'm going to click on triggering user here. Now that just means anybody that meets those conditions in the course, the events and the conditions. Any questions or comments about that? I always like to take a minute when I talk about this just to mention that, because, yeah, Kim. I see you raise your hand. Do you have a question and the way that's set up there?
What about this? What is the block about suspended users that you can check? Excludes users with suspended status from this communication. What does that mean?
Exclude users with suspended status.
Yeah.
So this just means this is related to users whose enrolled status is set to suspended in the course. So So yeah, if you have, let's say this is a course with a rolling enrollment, and you have users that haven't access to course and they're suspended in the course, that's what that would mean. Does that make sense? And I can go out
Yes,
to
yes.
yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. So again, I would do recipient to triggering user, and you might say, well, in addition to me receiving the message, again, I might be an administrator helping somebody out. I might say, well, I do want the teachers to be notified, so I'm going to do a CC and say add recipient, and I'm going to do. Now you can do all users of role assigned in this course as teacher. Again, because it's okay if every teacher receives this message about every student, but you don't want every student to receive a message, because it's going to be, that would essentially mean that if I received a message for myself, I'd also receive one for Bobby Smith or Susie Smith. So again, you can do the course role teacher. That would mean anybody that's enrolled in the course as a teacher will receive every single email that comes through for each user. And you can see there's even a BCC field. So if you wanted to write in a custom field, let's say the dean of a school or something like that wanted to receive an email, and just for reference, they might not even have access to the course itself, but you could type in an email address here. And then going down into the subject area, so that's where it starts getting fun with the tokens, in my opinion. So you can say insert token. So again, based on the list that we looked at earlier, you can say congratulations. My typing isn't, yeah, fingers aren't working that great today. Congratulations on activity name, on quiz. So congratulations on quiz 1 score. And you might say, hi, insert token, first name. Congratulations on recently completing. And we pop this in here, activity name. So quiz, it'd pop it in quiz 1 with a, passing score. Or you can also, there is an option of doing activity grade bins here. So you can also do that. Points earned, grade percent, etc. But again, this is where the personalization comes in, and then you can keep it simple and say, we look forward to continue working with you. Sincerely, Mike. And I'm going to click save here. And so it shows that there. So the action is set up. So it's almost fully set up. Again, if I click save, you can see, oh yeah, that's right, the rule name isn't set up. So I might say quiz 1 congratulatory message. Congratulatory message. I'm going to click save here. And as I do that, now that gets added into my list of PLD rules in this course. So again, and you can hover over this, you can see a couple other activities that are already set up is certificate PLD. And you can see with the certificate PLD that's set up, you can see that it has a number of conditions. So a current activities grade is greater than or equal to 75%. And these other activities have to be completed. These other 3 quizzes here. If they do, they're going to receive this display alert rather than an email. And you can see the display alert tokens are very similar, but student first name, you have completed the last quiz in the course successfully. Don't forget to collect your certificate in the next section of the course. So I think that's a nice feature. Quiz 1 congratulatory message that we just set up. Quiz retry reminder. So again, with this one, the event is based off of any quiz. So let me show you this one. I'm going to click on the gear icon for the quiz entry. or quiz retry reminder, click edit rule. And you can see here in the events, rather than choosing a specific quiz, we just chose any quiz. So this would be, again, related to quiz or assignment submitted. And when you choose activity type quiz, I'm just going to choose any of the type rather than doing, a specific quiz. And you can see how that works. That's how that popped up like that. So again, I wanted to show that because that's the general idea there is you don't have to choose a specific activity. It can be related to any quiz. And the reason why this works well with this PLD is if I go into the conditions here, you can say, again, we're not setting this to be related to a specific quiz. It's to any activities grade that is less than 50%. So again, if I click on the gear icon, check the grade of the following activity. Again, you remember the last time I chose select an activity and I chose quiz and I went in and I chose a specific quiz. Well, again, because I'd like this to be sent to any student that has received a 50% or lower on any quiz. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to specify it and not make it specific. I'm going to say, use the activity which triggered this rule. And again, the activity previously is any quiz. And then you can see the grade is less than 50%. So that's how that's set up there. And then in terms of the actions, again, the day alert, fairly similar to the email. Obviously, you're not setting up, who created the email, who are you CCing, things like that. It's pretty straightforward, but you can see the same tokens exist, user tokens, course tokens, etc. But let me stop for a moment. Any questions, comments about the general idea of, how we generalized this PLD to not make it related to a specific activity? And again, not hearing any questions. And again, a lot of this is fairly straightforward once start getting into it. And yeah, so good so far. Okay, great. And Kim, let me lower that. So perfect. Okay. Yeah, good. And then there's one other one that's we talked about a little bit during the presentation is the reminder. This is a reminder one that's based on course start date. So again, let me go with this one just to give you guys an idea of how exactly would we set up something like that. So with the event, rather than doing something related to activity grading or something like that, we're going to do course start date. So you can see course start date here. That's related to the start date in the edit settings of the course. So the event is set for 7 days after the course start date. So if the course start date was July 1st, it would check this, 7 days after it. And then we go to condition. So what is the condition type? And you can see this course login. The user is not logged in. You might say, how was this set up? How is it set up for that it's going to check that user is not logged into the course? It's based on course login. I'm going to click add, and that is where you can set it. So you can say user has not logged into the course within the past 7 days. You can set it, again, it doesn't have to be 7. You can do 3 days. You can do 10 days if you wanted to. And then the action, what's the action is it's going to send an email just related to the idea of OpenLMS orientation course. Now, one thing that you could do related to, rather than doing the user has not logged into the course within the last 7 days, you might say, well, I'm going to send a message to, maybe it's a pop-up message, and I think this is where you were going a little bit last time or during the presentation, Miles, about users receiving a pop-up message too often. You can say course entered. Well, rather than doing course start date, you can set up a new rule and say add a rule, and I'm going to do course entered. Click add here, and the condition is course login. Click add here, and user has logged into the course within the last 3 days. And then what's the action? The action is, what type, you can set up a display alert, things like that. We have a list of that I'll send in the, or I'll put in the course. There's a list of sample rules that you can look at, to have an idea how exactly you want to set these up. Again, that's something that we created a while back. Our team had created a while back and put it in the help documentation because we understand that some of these might be fairly straightforward to set up. Others you might not. You might need a little bit of assistance in terms of what action or what condition do I set up. That documentation that we have with the sample rules, you can essentially use those directly if you wanted to. But as you can probably imagine, and looking through these, the best way to kind of learn how to set these up is to kind of just, play around with them yourselves, go and do a course. And I might even, create a sample course with a test student that maybe has your personal email. I wouldn't start it off with a live course. Enroll that user in the course and kind of do some testing around with and see how that works. So. Let me hit cancel here for a moment. So again, any questions or comments right at the moment here based on anything that we've talked about so far? So I'm not hearing anything at the moment. So let me go back to my presentation here. And I wanted to look at the example section here a little bit. And this is a little I can see where, yeah, great. Thanks, Kim. Yeah. Definitely. For someone, and this is, I love to hear that, Kim, especially for someone that hasn't used this yet. I'm happy to hear that you're kind of seeing the way that, this really could be helpful. Again, you might keep it simple early on, and you might say, I'm just going to use this for quiz graded. And I just want to congratulate the students in the course for receiving a certain grade in a quiz. Everybody's familiar with the idea that you can go into the grade book and you can send a message to the student. You can, whether it's within OpenLMS or emailing them, and that's it's great functionality too. But this PLD really takes things a step further, and it really takes away a lot of idea that you have to manually check grades. You have to manually ensure users are logged into the course, and really helps you with the timepiece. So, so I wanted to just take a moment, or I'd say about 5 or 10 minutes to. We have an in-session practice assignment here. So I wanted you guys to, if you have access to your sandbox environments, to just kind of look at this, the general idea of this, the rule, the practice assignment, and look at the rule, the event, the condition, the action, and kind of go in and create that on your own. Again, we've kind of given the ideas of how this would work, but the general idea here is we just kind of want you to kind of get your hands on and kind of just create a rule yourself to get an understanding of how that works. So we'll take a moment here and let you guys, take a couple minutes and let you guys go into your sandbox environment and play around with the PLD for a couple minutes, for five minutes or so. I'd like to get, especially not to ask you specifically, Kim, but since this is something that you haven't used in the past, I'm curious to see if you have any questions about navigating within the PLD. So let's take a couple minutes and again, go to the sandbox environment, look at this practice assignment and kind of set up the practice assignment based on these details. And welcome, Carrie. So we're taking a moment to just do some in session practice assignment here. What we've been talking about here so far, to give you an idea, Carrie, is we had a presentation here where we talked about during the first half an hour or so, and I can I'll show you the slides in a little bit, where we talked about from a slide view perspective what exactly the PLD is used for and how you can use it. I sent there's some screenshots going through each step of the process of the PLD. And then I went into my sandbox environment and did a demo to kind of show the hands-on and put all of everything that we talked about during the presentation into practice. The idea for the screenshots that might be a little bit basic in the presentation, but I mentioned earlier, I will upload the presentation to that shared workshop course. So if you ever wanted to show your boss or a colleague exactly how this works, and rather than providing them with a demo, you wanted to say, hey, let me provide you with this presentation. You can see, some screenshots on how exactly this is used. That's kind of the idea behind the presentation here. So, and Carrie, if you don't mind me asking, perfect. Yeah, great. You're welcome. If you don't mind me asking, do you use the PLD in your environment? Have you used the personalized learning designer before? Not yet. Okay, that's great. Great to hear. Yeah, again, just while we're just taking 5 or 10 minutes here to do this in session practice assignment, I can just give again a little bit of a brief overview. So you may or may not be familiar, but the idea of the PLD is we like to call it an automated teaching assistant. So again, the main idea here is you can identify struggling students in a course. You can congratulate them, or you can welcome them into a course in addition to a number of other features. And the thing about it is, as we all know, you can go to the course grade book. You can see when a certain student has received a specific grade within a quiz, or when they've entered a course, or when they've not entered a course for that comparison. But rather than having to say, well, every Friday I'm going to take an hour or 2 hours to see who received an 85% or higher on quiz number 1, and I'm going to send a quick message to them, this PLD will do that for you. You set up that PLD to say, I want to congratulate any student that's received an 85% or higher on quiz number 1. You set up that PLD one time, and any student that's enrolled in the course, whether they got enrolled at the beginning of the start, when the course started, or maybe they were enrolled, 4 weeks later, as long as they meet the requirements set up in the PLD, they will receive that message. And again, that message is something that you can personalize so that so it's not just a generic message saying, hi, student, congratulations on receiving, an 85% or higher. You can really get personal. So in this in-session practice assignment, so again, the certain types of activities that you can use are pop-up alert, which is what this example is. You can see, welcome, Bobby. Thank you for visiting the Algebra 204 course. I think you will enjoy learning our subject, and I look forward to I look forward to our time together. Your instructor, Phil. That's a nice welcome message for a student that has just entered the course for the first time. Again, the idea of the PLD is that you might want to engage the students a little bit more, but you might not have the time to personally go out and email every time a student has entered a course. So this pop-up message you set this up in the PLD section of the course, and they'll receive this message whenever they access the course. So Bobby might access the course today, John might access the course in a week, but they're both going to receive the same message the first time they enter a course. So again, I'll stop for a moment. I know I mentioned a lot there too. Carrie, if you have any questions, we'll take a couple more minutes for those that might be setting up this practice assignment. But we'll take a couple more minutes, and I can go back into the course and show exactly, give you a little bit of the demo portion, just to give you more of a visual on what exactly, where exactly you can access the PLD and how exactly you set it up. So.
Hey, I have a quick question. Is this
Yeah.
Kim?
Yeah. Hey, Kim.
Hey, when you say add a redirect, or you're talking about a redirect to the syllabus?
Yes. Yeah.
So that would be an activity link? Is that, because I don't see like a redirect thing. So you're saying, would that just be saying, please review
Yes.
the syllabus and then click then insert token activity link?
So go to the activity. So let's see here. Yes, you'd want it to go to the activity event.
Oh, not activity link, but activity event.
Yeah, sorry, I might have wrote that incorrectly there. Apologies.
Oh, I was just looking through the choices, so I didn't look at the right choice.
So let me see.
I mean, I'll say that that's also a perfectly reasonable way to approach that kind of an idea of sending somebody to something by putting a link to that thing in the pop-up message. I would choose one.
Usually in our template.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Usually in our template, the syllabus is a link. I guess that's why that was clicking with me.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I mean,
yeah.
And for what you're setting up, then for you, that would make more sense even to take that approach. Just put the link to the syllabus in the message. And then I wouldn't add the redirect action after the message is done, because then they'd already be there, theoretically.
Yeah, so in Miles,
I'm sorry, I'm seeing adding redirect after message. That's where I'm kind of getting lost.
So Miles, what's cool about using the token is that the token associates to the object in context, not a hard URL. So it doesn't break going to the old course. It updates to the new course every time, as long as that object lives in the new course when you make the new course.
Yeah, so there's a couple of actions. There's go to activity and go to URL.
Yeah.
So if you filled in a redirect URL, that would stay the same.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so that's
go
why,
to URL. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to like copy the URL to the syllabus and put it in there, because then the next course will redirect the students to a course that they're not enrolled in, basically. But if I use the go-to activity, then it's gonna work perfectly fine, because it's gonna associate the activity. It's like
Okay,
gonna automatically grab that, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. And if you
if you use the URL, if you use go to URL, you want to use that for like external sites and things like that are going to stay the same.
Right. That's good for general school policy stuff, where there's like a single document somewhere that is the rule about academic honesty or integrity or whatever you want to call it, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And yeah, so and again, that good conversation about this too. I mean, the one thing too is you can see that there's a number of ways that you can set up. It's flexible in terms of determining how you want to set up a certain certain activity. So yeah, thank you for bringing those up, Miles, and for the questions, Kim. Let's see. Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah. There was a little bit of a delay on your end, Kim. I heard a little bit of what you had mentioned. And she had mentioned that she might have
Yeah.
connection problems. Yep. Yeah, you had mentioned that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did any of you guys want to share your screen to show exactly what you did?
I was having trouble finding the screen, the screen with some of the options you were talking
Oh, okay. So, for example, like adding the redirect after the message is closed. So, so the redirect, and it would be the go-to activity, Kim. That's kind of what we were thinking, that could add a redirect after the message is closed. So I maybe I should have I might have been able to word that a little bit differently. Instead of could add a redirect after the message is closed. General idea there is have a go-to activity or go-to URL. So it wouldn't be that you're not looking for the specific word to redirect in any of the events or condition or action. Does that help, Kim? And it looks like, okay, sure. Okay. Yeah, and again, yeah, I think that's, again, I appreciate Miles and Kim kind of speaking up. And anybody else have any other comments about this practice option here? Literal, yeah, very okay. Yeah, yeah, sure. I thought that you were, it was meant for literal, yeah. That definitely makes sense. I know exactly what you mean. So, and that's definitely a good point to bring up there. So, but yeah, no, again, thank you for the discussion on that. I think that's definitely helpful to kind of talk through how exactly we had set that up there. I'm going to be talking about a homework assignment a little bit here. One thing I did mention at the end of the last presentation is that we would like to provide you guys with certificates once these, we'll call them homework assignments, are completed. So I put the homework assignment for the session 1 into that shared workshop course, and I'll put this one also in the shared workshop course. We don't have to go through all the details right at the moment, but just to where if you can take some time after this call, and I'm not ending this right at the moment, but I just if you can take some time after this call to kind of just take some time and set this up in your environment and provide some screenshots, just so we have some interaction in terms of you kind of doing a little bit more testing and seeing how things work. We'd appreciate that, just for you guys to put some knowledge to use there. But we have a couple other examples, and again, I know I went into a couple examples in the demo, but work not submitted. You can see here, general idea here is, you might want to set up a rule where a homework is due soon. So you can see it lists out what type of event, condition, and action you're taking. So the event is a specific date and time. The date is 1 day before the assignment is due here. Condition, check if the student has submitted the assignment yet, and checks to see if they have a course grade less than 75%. And then the action is it's going to send an email to the student with a reminder to submit and a link to the assignment in question. So the idea is here is you can include with the idea that with the PLD you can include HTML in the email, so you can always include something a little bit more interactive or funny, such as a meme. Grade check is optional, and with this, disabled rules are saved but are not active, and I'll show you that in a moment here. Another example is struggling with activities. So, for example, if there's a poor form grade, and if you want the student to receive a message that they should reach out to you as the teacher if they're struggling with form activities, and this could be related to any activities, but check to see if they scored below a 65% in a certain activity. And you can see the action is send an email to the instructor and student suggesting a meeting to discuss how to do in the forums. So again, you can see from the from is the action creator, the to is the triggering user, as we talked about, and in addition, the action creator. And then we use some of the tokens in the subject and body to personalize that. Some ideas is you can turn it around and provide kudos to high-performing students. Automatically release additional materials that help the learners understand the good use of the forums. So again, a number of options there. Let me take a moment to go back into my environment here. And Carrie, just to give you an idea, and just, it's always good for I feel like to kind of review what we've learned again. So let me make sure, there we go. So Carrie, when I'm in the course, the area where you can access the PLD rules, it's either by going into the course dashboard and you can see PLD here, or and only instructors can see this. If I go into the course administration and go all the way down to the bottom, you can see personalized learning designer. So whether I click on one of those two links me to the same place, and this is the PLD section. You can see I already have some PLD rules set up. What I had mentioned in one of those last slides is if I click on the gear icon, you can disable a rule. So you might say, you know what, I'm not going to send the congratulatory message anymore for quiz 1 for a certain reason, but I don't want to delete it because I want the history of that. I'm just going to click disable rule here. And by having that disabled, then it just doesn't apply, and I can always turn it on a later time. But the general idea, Carrie, is that with the personalized learning designer, you're telling the course to notify students based on a certain activity, you know, a certain activity, a certain grade range, certain time that they've entered a course. You're notifying them about something that you want to message them about or send them to. So, for example, just very brief and simple setup that I had talked about earlier is I want to congratulate a student on receiving a certain grade in quiz number 1 or any quiz, to be honest. You can say events and say activity graded, and the activity type is, again, I might say I want this related to the quiz, and maybe I want it to you might want it related to any quiz, or you might say I'm going to choose a specific quiz. So I'm going to do, quiz on the PLD completion. And you can see right now it says there are no events defined for this rule. If I click add, it will add that. Oh, yeah, nice, Andy. So the event is set up there. Then if I click condition, you can say what's the condition. So we set up the event condition action. The condition is activity grade range. So I'm going to click add here, and I'm going to say select an activity. So again, I chose quiz, and I'm going to do PLD. You don't have to do that twice, though. I mean, you could say just use the activity which triggered this rule, which is what we set up in the events area. but the grade is greater than or equal to, for example, 85%. Save that, and now that message goes away that we haven't set up a condition. And then the last part is the action. So what exactly is going to happen when we set up this PLD rule? Do you want a student to be notified with a pop-up when they access the course? Do you want them to be emailed? These other options are related to, there's a number of actions. You can, have a user access a certain activity once they've completed a previous activity or something like that. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it simple and say send email, click add. And again, the options here, so from action creator, that might be, that's the person that I set up, but I might say, you know what, I want it to go from the teacher in this course. And in terms of recipients, this is something I mentioned earlier, and I always want to kind of point this out. You always want to do triggering user because it will be anybody that's set up as a student and can be graded, submit a graded activity is considered a triggering user. If you were to choose all users of role assigned in this course and chose student, that's something that I've seen chosen in the past. What that does, though, is that sends this message to every student in the course. So if I'm Bobby Smith and I meet the conditions and I receive an 85% in the course, or in quiz number 1, I receive an 85%. Not only I, as the triggering user, I'm not going to only receive this, but every student in the course is going to receive a message for Bobby Smith saying, "Congratulations, Bobby Smith! You received an 80. You received an 85% in the course." So the time when I use add recipient and triggering all users of role assigned in this course is if you're CCing. So if I want let's say there's 3 instructors in this course, and you want every instructor to receive a message for any student, I'm going to say all users of role assigned in this course, and I'm going to choose teacher. And that's for the CC, but going back to the recipient, I'm going to say for the add recipient, I'm going to do triggering user. So anybody that meets the requirements of the events and the conditions will receive the message. Oh, by the way, every single teacher in this course will receive this message too for every student. And then going on to the subject, this is where this is the personalized aspect of this learning designer, is you can really get personalized and say, congratulations, or let's say, I'm going to insert token, say activity name token. So it'd say quiz 1, congratulations. And then I go into the body and say, hi, token first name. Congratulations on receiving a passing grade on an insert token again. Activity name, quiz number 1. We look forward to continue working with you. Sincerely. And again, you can really get detailed in here. There's the text editor. So you might say, well, let me put an emoji. You might think that people might you want to engage students a little bit more. And my sandbox is not set up for emojis, but just so that. So, but maybe you want to put a link in here. The link to activity is where you would enter the link in here. So again, a lot of options with the email. I think the email is really neat tool to be able to. There's so many ways that you can personalize it. With the course entered, you can do that the first time that they log into the course. You would probably use a date check with that one and say current date is after and base it off of that. We have a sample rule that I'll send to you, Carrie, that you can use